And we'll be starting shortly. We're still waiting a few more, like another minute or so. Is Lindsay okay, Ophelia?
Let me see.
We have one more faculty that is going to be joining us, and we're going to wait a little while. They might be having some technical difficulties.
What language? Yes, Elaine. Oh. Let's just wait one more minute. And so let's see. We have 11 and minus us 3 or 4. So got another student, Elaine, welcome. Faculty, ooh, world language. Yes, so this may hit home and to the heart. Let me see, yes. Staff, Crystal from district, all right.
Very nice. We have a variety of.
Yes.
In the audience.
So Enrique, what college are you from? Who's your primary institution? Enrique?
Oh, I'm from St. Philip's.
St. Philip's, thank you. Awesome. And
Vivian?
Oh,
sorry, apologize. Palo Alto.
Palo Alto, okay. Vivian? He's like, I used to go there.
Palo Alto.
Palo Alto, awesome. Let me see, who else? What was the other student? We had Joshua. Where are you from, Joshua? Who's your primary institution?
Lindsay, there she is, okay. NBC.
Hello, hello. Hi, Lindsay. Good to see you.
You want to unmute yourself?
Hi, I'm so used to being the person in charge of the meeting that I'm already unmuted. So, hi.
No problem.
Everybody. All right, so we have a few students here and some staff. So this is going to be fun. And so I'm going to go ahead and share. We're going to get started on this presentation. Welcome. And oh, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and let Maria do her thing first. Go ahead, Maria.
I was going to let you go for it. Okay, I'll do it really brief so you can
start. I'm so excited.
Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us in this session that will take you on a virtual experience to Salamanca, Spain. It looks like I've seen several that have been attending several of our other sessions, so I'm glad that you are participating and hope that you are enjoying the sessions. Today we have Ofelia Garcia, who is joining us and presenting to us. She is the interim lead advisor in student success at Northeast Lakeview. She is currently the chair for International Education Committee and the lead sponsor for the International Club. She will be one of our presenters, and as well with Professor Lindsay Holland. She is the professor of criminal justice at Northeast Lakeview, where she has taught since spring 2012. Today, they will be sharing their experience from their participation in the Alma College's Professional Development in Salamanca, Spain program in summer 2017. I think everybody's muted, if you can please stay muted. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat, and we'll be answering as we see them or at the end of the session. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, so be prepared for a wonderful, fun, and busy a PowerPoint. It just, we're just trying to express all the excitement and all the activities. And so hopefully you're not overwhelmed, but just, get excited and passionate about visiting. So I'm going to share the PowerPoint now, and we're going to get started. So can everyone give me a thumbs up if you can see the presentation? Did I share? Okay.
Yes, we can see it.
All right, thank you. So welcome to the presentation on Salamanca, Spain. And so I wanted just to share with you a picture of the group of what started and inspired this. And so there was a professional development program back in 2017 for faculty, and it was for the first time offered also for staff. And so I had the opportunity as a staff member to attend. So here we have the group. You see myself, we had SAC, we had Palo Alto, we had St. Philip's, and NLC staff represent and come in San Antonio College. So we had several individuals, and so that was a very exciting moment. And here we are pictured in our in a building referred to as the Anaya building, and that's where we had our classes. And so just to give you a brief review of Salamanca, located, west of the capital of Spain, Madrid. So we flew into Madrid, and then we stayed the night, and then we went ahead and took a bus ride to Spain. And on the way, we stopped at a location called Escorial, and it's a palace built by King Felipe. I forgot what number, I apologize, the 4th or the 5th, but this building was, this palace / monastery / convent / library, it was huge and beautiful. But what we're going to do is we went straight on from there. We went to Salamanca. And so what we want you to know about Salamanca, it has one of the oldest universities and buildings there in Spain, and up there with all of Europe, and also known as the Golden City because of its, all the stonework and all this, the color, and it's just a beautiful place. And you'll see some of the pictures, and you'll see that. So this is just a map so you can get an idea of where Salamanca lies, and you'll see that it's kind of centrally located to the west, and so very close to Portugal, and still a ways down from the south. And if you look at the little map around there, you do see Toledo, which is underneath Madrid. And so we'll share a little bit information about that. Toledo used to be, during the monarchy, it used to be the capital of Spain, and then later on it got moved to Madrid. So we did get a chance to visit Toledo, and then we'll talk about a little bit about our other excursions to Zamora León and also to Avila. Okay, so just the history of Salamanca. I think one thing, you'll see here when it was founded and the attention or recognitions that they received and privileges. But what I want you to know about that was interesting, and a year ago, 2018, they celebrated 800 years in existence because they were founded in 1218. So it's pretty remarkable. If you look at the attention part, they do talk about how the Pope and Alexander IV, being one of the 4 great world universities, they're up there with the universities of Oxford, Paris, and Bologna, and they, Salamanca is one of the oldest in Europe. And then as we continue, then we begin to, you have to, the Salamanca to begin with was for the nobles and for men. And so later on, you see how the funding in the university transitions, of course, and allows for other colleges and areas and new students. And then eventually today we have 30,000, well, not we, but they have 30,000 students participating in upward programs to up to 250 programs. So it was very exciting to go there when we went there. And here's our little walk going to and from to the university. And so we went for cursos internacionales. You can possibly basically consider that continuing education. So here we are in our classroom, and right there's a little short little program that I put there just so you could see that the classes that we reviewed, Sociedad Española Actual. So that was basically about the society of Spain, and Cultura y Civilización Españolas, so culture and civilization, and then Arte Español. So we had a lot of fun in these classes, didn't we, Lindsay?
Absolutely. They were great. And one of the biggest things I think to really impress upon everybody is that these classes were actually taught in Spanish. And so it was a big jump for a couple of our students. that were part of our group, but through lots and lots of charades and communication, we get the gist, and we come out with a greater understanding because we hear it in the original language and all of that good stuff. And really, you get to see and hear the passion of those instructors. I got to tell you, we had some first-rate instructors there, don't you think, Ophelia?
Yes, it was amazing. And I like that you pointed that out, because I think some of us didn't realize that it was going to be fully immersion into Spanish. And so, and of course, what's interesting is they all recognized our accents and knew we weren't from there and where you're from. And so the Spanish is very different. It's Castilian Spanish. And so very advanced language. And so nothing compared to our Tex-Mex Spanish, but it was a lesson, a big lesson. So here's this building that we're at. Let me see, hold on, this is not working. Hold on, let me click. My clicking is not working. There it is. So Hospedera de Anaya. So that's a building right next to their faculty building, and in front of this huge church. Off to the right, you're gonna see, you see me in a little corner, and that's inside the Hospedera de Anaya, and that's where we had class in the corner there. But in the background is a cathedral that's they call it the new one, but it's really everything is old for us. This took about 200 years for it to be built. And I think there's just layers upon layers of different eras and different design. And I think we had to study the different layers, and the facade with the fachada is what they call it. And so, do you want to talk to anything about that church? I know we're going to have a slide on cathedrals, but this I'm on the second floor here. So I'm trying to figure out if you can basically grasp the grandiose, gigantic cathedral that this is.
I was just going to give them some dates here. I just fact checked a couple dates for us, Ophelia. So the building began in 1513 on the new cathedral, on La Nueva Catedral, and it was consecrated in 1733. It was commissioned by Ferdinand V of Castile.
Yes.
So it was amazing. It was one of those things that you could actually have gone and visited probably every day and seen something different.
So every day on our walk to our class, we were in this plaza of the university, of the cathedral, and all the other buildings, the whole central academia of the Universidad. Because to tell you the truth, Salamanca is basically, it's like a whole university town, along, with the rich history of Catholicism and the cathedrals. And so here we are. So just some tidbit information that I thought that was interesting, and just to, I know that we went to a few museums and learned about the history of the tribes and how they migrated, from Northern Europe. And there was so much about Greeks and Celtic, and I mean, we can go on and on and on, but just to get the basic idea, what I do remember a lot about is about the Roman rule, and then the Moors, or los musulmanes. So, Lindsay, did you want to talk to that about or anything?
No, I think I'm good on that. You're doing great.
Okay. So what I do remember, what we can talk about also in reference to the Roman rule, that the language, this is when it becomes very different. And this is when the changes become in reference to Castilian, because of the Roman rule and the mixture of Latin with the Iberian Peninsula's tribal languages there. So there's a lot of information, some more information. I'll talk about that later on. But what I do remember, and I wish I could have found, because I took over like 1,000 pictures when I was there. I went crazy. Lindsay can attest to like me going crazy. She probably felt like I was probably like the paparazzi, and I was like after her and everybody taking pictures. But we did visit and go to the Roman bridge, and it's very apparent there, and we crossed it. And so this was an important area there that still remains from the 5th century, and is still there, readily available for everyone to access and walk across like nothing. So lots of rich history there. And then the other thing that I definitely want to mention about the the Moors or los musulmanes, that during their rule and their time in the Iberian Peninsula, I think it was 700 years that they ruled. And even though they were there, they did not, like the Romans, require and impose their language or their culture. And it was pretty interesting to see that they allowed everyone to do whatever, follow your culture, your language, and they just all got along. So the interesting thing also to know about the mixture of the Moors and the influence of Catholicism and even Jewish, that like in Toledo, when we went to go visit that location, it was also named the La Ciudad de Tres Culturas, so the city of three cultures, because the minute you go into Toledo, it's just synagogues for Muslims or Islam, I mean, and then you have para los musulmanes for the Muslims, and then you have Jewish, and then you have cathedrals, and they're all within yards of each other. So, and it was so interesting and so beautiful to visit Toledo and to see, you know, on the pebble roadways there, you saw little ceramic Arabic letters and writings. And so I took pictures along the way, and I'm like, eventually I'm going to find out what this means. So that was very interesting. And so the other thing about the Moors, those musulmanes, to understand and be aware of, is that I was not aware that the Spanish language has about 4,000 words of Arabic origin. So that was pretty interesting. So for example, almohada, that's a pillow. Almohada has al, so I'm just like, oh, that does make sense, you know, with the al and stuff. So that was pretty interesting. Alfombra, which is carpet. So that's also of Arabic. Let me see. I think even aceituna. So I'm trying to remember, but it was which one?
Alcohol.
Oh yes, alcohol. Yeah. So that was pretty interesting. So let me go ahead and go to the next slide here. So let me see. So we have here about the university, the 4 large academies and the different areas and the different colleges, and we visited. There was so much to do. I know that we visited a very private and usually not accessible library, and so because of the ancient manuscripts in there, and so we had the privilege of getting allowed to be in there and a distance and not breathing too heavy on the books, and they were very careful with the handling, you know. But the other thing that we also got to do is visit the Civil War Museum, and so this really shared and expressed, you know, the 1930s Spain dominated by the, you know, in reference to the instability and General Franco, the dictator, and how they took over power, Spain, and all that interesting information. So I wanted just to show this little layout of the history of Salamanca, because when we went to Avila, this is where you find some maps on the tribes and these older names and locations that are very interesting to understand the different types of people that were living there even before the Moors and before the Romans. And so, and I think you can, a lot of the names as they changed and transformed, you still see like Galacos or Galacicos. Now it's Galicia. I can say Galicia instead. But on the other side, it's kind of interesting where France is. You see Parisos, and now that's, you know, Paris and stuff. So these are very interesting names and lots of history on the whole tribal and Celtic influence. I'm surprised and that I see Celticos there at the bottom, because I thought they were mainly at the top. But hey, it's every time I look at this stuff, it's another new experience and another thing to research and review. Remember when we went to Avila, Lindsay, and we visited that museum, those Vetones or something like that?
We saw a lot in Avila. We saw a lot in Avila. I think one of the things that really stuck out in Avila for a couple of folks in our group was the fact that they had a relic.
Oh, yes.
They had a relic in Avila. So I think a few folks that were maybe not as familiar with the old Catholic, Roman Catholic religion were not so aware of the of the idea of having relics. And as you guys probably do know, that a relic was typically a piece of a person's body that was martyred. And they would bring it back to these different churches so that they could honor the saint, or so that they could, quite honestly, it was kind of a marketing thing. We have Teresa's finger, come see it, you'll be blessed. And so we saw the finger and we were very impressed by it. And we definitely ate some interesting things. That I'm trying to remember, the yema de Avila.
Yes.
So some interesting foods, good stuff, but definitely worth seeing. Good trip. And for a first time for you to take a train in Spain, I thought it was a pretty interesting adventure for you.
Oh, yes. We had, there's some information there in reference to the excursions that we had, but Avila was on our own time, our own day. And we're like, we got to go somewhere. And so we figured out, for the first time, just getting on that and taking a ride. And I know Lindsay is a little bit more of an avid traveler and more comfortable probably with trains and more brave. I was just like, where do we go? What do we do? How do we do this? I took a picture of this ticket and I look at it now and I'm just like, I still don't understand it, can interpret the day, the time and all that. So it's pretty interesting. So another thing that we, what?
But we got there.
Yes, we sure did. So another thing that we did there, we definitely learned a lot about some of the literature there. And so right there where the Roman bridge was at, we learned a lot about Lazarillo de Tormes, and a famous original from Spain, and a story in reference to a blind man and a child that was in service. And so there's a statue there, and there's lots of history and information about that. So that was pretty interesting. That's published in 1554. I know that there was also, we have here Luis de Leon, a Spanish poet, and then a building and the significance of Miguel de Unamuno, who wrote some novels and poetry. The other thing that I remembered, I'm wondering if this, the Friar Agustin, the Friar, was he the one, the monk that that was imprisoned for translating the Bible from Latin to Spanish? I'm trying to remember that. So there's just lots of interesting stuff. There is this, because that statue reminds me, I know in some plaza in front of the fachada they showed us, and I think it was a Friar, but I'm sorry. So there's lots of information. He did write De los Hombres de Cristo, of the names of Christ. And so again, these are from 1500s, and then you've got Miguel, that's a little bit more recent, from 1917 and 1913. So back to the language, and again, like I had mentioned earlier about the 4,000 words in today's Spanish, so that was something that I definitely wanted to go ahead and mention, and how I thought it was pretty interesting how I translated the word vulgar, and I'm just like, what are they talking about? But the interesting thing, it was just the term that was used to describe once Latin had transformed and turning into Spanish. So that was another item there. And then, of course, the other thing that we have to keep in mind is that, Lindsay, if you want to help me, how many languages, there's 5 languages, but they officially recognize 4 languages, right? Do you remember?
I do not specifically remember. I would be happy to try to fact check it for you real quick. But I do not remember that one.
No,
I do know that.
Okay, so let's brainstorm, because this is fun. So for sure, there was Castilians, and then Catalunya, Basque. There's somebody else that we're missing. I'm trying to remember. There's 3. Let me see if I can go back and remember. Let me see. Oh, what happened? Shoot, what happened? Hello?
You're
Okay.
still there. You still got the
My screen went black. So that was something that we definitely learned. And so I'm trying to remember. Well, okay, remember, this was 2017. I was trying to remember all of this. But there are 4 languages, and I had them all memorized, and I knew it by heart. And then there was, I remember the Basque, and that's up in north, close to France. And this was a language that they still are researching and debating the origins of it. It's so unusual, it's so unique, and maybe a lot of Celtic and French and Spanish and Latin. There's just a big mix, and it's still an active language that's used up there. I think Euskera is another one that's coming to me, but I don't know.
I'm looking it up. Is it Valencian? It looks like it, maybe. I don't know. It says
That would be Catalan.
Spanish,
That would be Catalan. That would be Catalonia. So it's Catalan.
Basque.
Yeah, so your four main languages are Castilian, Catalan, Galician, and Basque.
Okay, so it's Galicia, because
Yeah,
Galicia is
where
right over. Yeah, go for
you
it.
use the theta, where you use the theta instead of a ta sounds. And then Catalan is the one that, of course, they're still trying to figure out exactly how that language became. And their idea is that because it was within the mountain range, they had this idea that it was cut off from France, really cut off from the rest of Spain. So within that country living between those mountain ranges, they had kind of an isolated language that they continued with. And that's what we have. That's what we have today still, is kind of this different language that's just kind of stuck in the middle.
And there it is. We were trying to guess, and voila, there's some.
Good job.
So we've got again the Basque. Okay, that's okay. Basque in Espanol, or in their language, Euskera. So I remember Euskera, and Castilian and Catalan, and then Galicia. So Galicia, I think what I remember, it's right over Portugal. So again, I think that's a little bit more Spanish and Portuguese, and I mean everybody's just an amazing mixture of trying to understand and be aware of all the languages, and how there's another one, there's a fifth one, but it's not officially recognized. These four are official languages that are recognized in Spain. So very interesting. So this is a wonderful picture that I took at the fachada of the main cathedral. I keep getting confused. It's called the new one, even though they're all old, but some are extra old. But this is the new one. And so this was I have tons of pictures, but there was this one, there was a tradition among the students. Lindsay, do you remember this tradition and what they did and what they were looking for?
I do, because I found it, but I had to cheat. I had to get someone to direct my attention to a specific section of the carvings on the wall.
Right.
So there is a myth. Okay. So at the time, all the carvings on the facade, they truly have a meaning. And one of the things that was such a big deal, and really this is kind of the story that we were told, that there is a little frog. So there is a little frog that's hidden within the sculptures on that wall
on a skull.
He's actually sitting on top of a little skull. So you have this little calavera with a little froggy on top. And the idea was with the students is that if they went out and they looked at it, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ofelia, perdón. I've talked to too many other names today. So if you saw the frog, and you found it without anybody helping you, you would do well in school. You would do well on your exams. If you didn't find it, of course, probably not going to do so great. Give up now, right? But what really the idea behind it is because of the idea of, we want to say maybe STDs. This was kind of a way for them to impose upon the students this idea of penance, and you're going to have poison and terrible things happen to you if you don't just study and do what you're supposed to do according to the church. And so it really was trying to keep the students from fraternizing too much with each other by spooking them. And so just like all the other gargoyles and things like that scare us from hell, this was scaring us into studying and not, again, fraternizing with each other. I think I got the story straight.
Yes, you did. Wonderful.
Fantastic. And one thing I just want to mention, I'm going to just take just a minute to talk about the architecture. There's also a few other weird things that are in this facade and within the cathedral, and you'll see it and you go, what in the world? Am I really actually seeing this? there's an astronaut in one of the carvings. Well, the idea is that with these ancient facades, the architecture that they're trying to preserve, when something gets knocked off or gets damaged and they go in to restore it, it has to look markedly different. You have to be able to pick it out as not being original to the actual facade. And so as people are looking at these gorgeous ancient looking things, and you're looking at all these beautiful carvings, Adam and Eve and the devil and these beautiful animals and whatnot, and then you see an astronaut and you're going, really? Come on. But that's the idea behind it, because it threw us off and we had to do a little investigation and get an explanation. And we're like, oh, okay. We see what you're doing, Spain. We get it. And so it's part of their restoration, but without damaging the message of the past. And so it's a pretty cool thing.
And so we were looking at the facade of the new cathedral, La Catedral Nueva. And so even though they call it Nueva, you know, and it was built in the 1600s, it's because the other one, the old Cathedral Vieja, which I don't think I visited, and I'm not sure if you got to visit that one, but that one was in the 12th century. So I think that's why I kind of sometimes get confused, because I'm like, they're all old. What are they talking about, old and the new? One is older, basically. But the Nueva Catedral, 200 years to complete, early 16th century, 14 chapels. It was ginormous. It was amazing. So I know that we've got to visit the new Catedral. We also visit Convento de San Esteban, and that's the, I don't know how you can't translate that other than the convent. But again, that was also very, very beautiful, intricate Renaissance style architecture, a religious museum and a historic altar. We didn't visit, but the other ones that you can, and so we can still go back and we need to visit all the rest of them. We've got the Santa Clara Convent and Espiritu Santo Church. I think that's the one by the Roman bridge. I'm not sure. So I do know I visited 2 of them. I'm not sure. Lindsay, did you visit any other ones?
I did, but to be quite honest with you, it was on a day when I was by myself, and they all blended together because I was not as good of a documentary, and I didn't document it as well as you did.
Oh, no problem at all. So we have here, we look, this is just to mention it, and we've already showed you the facade to one, and I wish I could show you the 1,000 pictures that I have, but this is just an example of what you see in all the cathedrals, the towers, the points, and the Gothic and the Renaissance, and of course inside all the Romanesque paintings and depiction there of numerous saints, angels, God, and the Virgin Mary. So again, here are the other ones. We did get to visit Convento San Esteban. I think even Lindsay out there, I had a dinner out there with the other group. I think that was one of those evenings that I was just so exhausted and could not move after doing 10,000 steps for 3 days. But again, this is again additional photos of the cathedrals that are very famous and that you can visit there.
There are some beautiful outdoor cafes and things like that, and there were some really picturesque. Although what she's referring to is there was a gorgeous little restaurant that Ms. Zecca was nice enough to get us a reservation, and we had an evening out there, and we got to watch the lights turn on the monuments, which is a pretty cool thing, because around dusk, at one point, all of them just go boom, and it's all illuminated. It's kind of like sitting in the Plaza Mayor.
It's this one right there, that's illuminated right there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and sitting and watching that happen,
So like I had mentioned earlier, there's some information there about the General Archive of the Spanish Civil War. And so with lots of art and artifacts and documents that are archived there about the dictatorship and the war. So this was very, very interesting. We also visited the Museum of Art Nouveau and Art Deco, and that's a picture of it down below from the outside. And so again, this still highlighted the 19th century and World War II. And there's something very, very famous about the iridescent glass from the workshops inside. And so there were a lot of interesting dolls and I remember there was this one room I could not enter. It was just like, I have a phobia for dolls, but I guess some people just love these porcelain, ceramic, and there was hundreds of them in a room, and that was pretty interesting. So I almost got a little worked up there, but
You
we
had the
definitely saw.
jaqueque.
What?
I said you had the jaqueque.
So lots of beautiful museums in this one location in walking distance from corner to corner. And so it is pretty amazing to be able to visit so many historical cathedrals and a museum from the 12th to the 19th century. So it's pretty amazing. So some traditions, we were there in the summer. So I don't think we were there for any festive or ferias or holidays, but if you do plan and want to visit, then these are some interesting traditions to be aware of. I do know that in our class, when we studied culture, we saw so many interesting videos, and they highlighted Antonio Banderas and his hometown and those celebrations. And so March and April, and I think this is pretty much aligns with a lot of the Mexican traditional holidays about La Semana Santa, the Holy Week, along with in September, the Ferias de Salamanca, and then also in January, that aligns with us is the Reyes Magos, but they have additional information and more information about the origins. Because sometimes I wonder, why do we do this? You know, so then of course, you know, it came from Spain and from Europe and from the Middle Ages. And so, and then there's information there about the temperature. I know when we went, it was pretty fair. It wasn't too bad. And it was perfect temperature. I'm trying to remember, it was in June or July. I'm trying to remember the dates exactly. I should have.
It was the end of June, I believe.
Okay. So this was definitely places that we visited, and it was pretty exciting. And I have tons of pictures walking around the Salamanca Central Market with Lindsay and with Yvette Lucelli, and she's a professor that teaches at SAC. She teaches EDUC. So she was there, and we tried to do the whole like, oh yes, this is the Rick Steves place where he ate the olives and stuff. If you know who Rick Steves is, you know, reference to World Traveler on PBS. So we had to go to the market. And so it was pretty amazing. I took tons and hundreds of pictures there, all the meats and fresh fruits. And the other major area there, of course, is the Plaza Mayor. Lindsay, do you want to talk about our experience there at the Plaza Mayor?
Well, the Plaza Mayor, like I said, so in the evening, it's fantastic because you do have a lot of different, things going on there. But I can tell you, one of the most confusing things for us when we first got into the plaza was figuring out what table to sit at. And so just to give you a hint, the tables with tablecloths, be prepared to order dinner or a full lunch. If there's no tablecloth, then you're probably going to have something very light, like some tapas, and you're going to just maybe have a drink. And so we had to distinguish those things. Now, the Plaza Mayor was very interesting because all the way around it, they have these gorgeous medallions where they actually have the faces of a lot of their leaders, people that are well respected on these different medallions. There is one that is actually missing, and I think that was Franco, right?
Yes, Franco's missing.
They took it down because it kept getting vandalized. And so you can do all sorts of things in the Plaza Mayor. For instance, one evening I heard a beautiful concert there. I went down and sat, and getting tables can be difficult when it's a packed house. I know that area looks huge. but they'll put a full orchestra there. They'll put a full choir. I was even there one afternoon when I saw somebody come through in a classic car to take bridal pictures. They also had an art exhibit up where we had this big elephant that was balancing on his trunk upside down. So they really use that plaza to really showcase so much that's going on, or things that are traveling through the city to create more interest. So really, it is a great cultural center. Now, one of the other things that we found along the plaza that was absolutely so important for us was a travel office, where we finally picked up some maps, because somehow within the mix of things, that wasn't one of the things that got to us. And so we took it upon ourselves and got some more information. And then on top of that, there's some great shops, local places. And I got to tell you one other thing. If you don't like ice cream, stay away, because that is like the biggest treat there. The ice cream shops are magnifique. They're gorgeous. And so it was really wonderful. So getting some churros, having your coffee. One of the mornings we even went and had kind of an American breakfast because we were really craving it. So the other thing that we did in the plaza was make friends. I gotta tell you, I don't know many enemies and I don't know many strangers. And so it was like, hi, where are you from? And so we got to talk to a few other people that were traveling or doing things like we were doing there in Spain. So really cool.
So back to what Lindsay was talking about in reference to the finger. So this is in Avila, the famous artist, it says it's Santa Teresa de Avila, so it's Saint Teresa. And so a mystic and author of spiritual writings. And so I think that what was very, very interesting about her, there was so much dedicated to her. The convent, the bookstore, an exhibit, so much about not only the history of Avila, but she's a very prominent figure there in Avila. And so I think there was a lot of information about how many times she had been published or how famous she was. So I thought that was pretty interesting about that. Another thing that was in Avila, and then when we went to Toledo, famous painter El Greco. I can't pronounce his correct name. It's a very long Greek name, but amazing photos there where he was constantly commissioned by the king, and lots of, and that's the El Escorial, the location, the palace that I said that we had visited. And I'm wondering, is it just says the king relegated it to the to important chapter. Okay, so I thought I'd have the king, specific king there. But yes, famous Greek painter, sculptor, and architect during the Spanish Renaissance. So lots of beautiful paintings there in El Greco, and his house and where he lived. We visited that in Toledo. Another thing to also just keep in mind in reference to famous writings or scripts or tragedies or plays is the one of the tragic comedy of Callisto and Melibea. And so I do want to mention that I think there was a part there that we visit that was dedicated to that story. And it was basically a Romeo and Juliet story, but more of the Spain version. Anything you want to add to that, Lindsay?
The only thing I can remember is that park was just gorgeous. It had like a little orchard and it had some gorgeous little walkways. And from that park, you could actually see over the ravine and over another part of the city. So it was a great lookout point. If you happen to go, you can't miss it. It's a really nice vista.
So some popular foods. And you know what, and I so regret not finding the pictures to this, but this should be enough. But we did visit a restaurant, and we had cooking lessons. And so we were in the back of a small little kitchen, and with a bucket of tomatoes, and everybody was blending. And I have pictures of Lindsay in there grabbing and planning and getting it all done. And the interesting thing is our group was partnered up with another group of students. And so another thing to keep in mind about Salamanca, that it is a prime destination spots for worldwide. I mean, there were so many students. And then I remember even in the cafeteria when we went to eat, because we were at the dorms, and I was so excited and happy to learn that, oh, we get a little cafeteria card. I go, wow, we get to eat in the cafeteria. So we made it back on time. Of course, it was a schedule. And so we were able to eat there, but then we ventured off to eat anywhere else. So this sarmalejo, which is almost like, didn't we call it like a gazpacho soup? Like, so.
Yeah, it's very similar to a gazpacho, but it doesn't have any bread in it. And
Okay.
I know that sounds weird, but bread just thickens up gazpacho. And so this was just a teensy bit different, but had the same kind of essence.
So just cold tomato soup. I've never had cold soup before, and I thoroughly enjoyed it and had fun with it. And especially since Lindsay was part of the tomato mixing. And now another thing that was very interesting was a tortilla and jamon. There's two different things, because I know there was jamon iberico. I had some problems trying to figure out what to eat over there, because I did not like the jamon, but I did like the chorizo, and the chorizo is much different from over here. But the tortilla is not our tortilla. Their tortilla looks like this. It's I don't know what to call it. It's just like a potato quiche or something. So it's mixed. It's egg, potato, onions, and so it's just, luckily they had told me about it, because if I was asking for food, if I would have ordered 3 tortillas, I would have gotten big platters of potato and a potato pie. I don't know how else to describe it, but it's pretty delicious. The soups were pretty amazing. And then off to the side, along with what Lindsay had mentioned about the tostadas, which are usually the snacks and on the table that they give you, these are other little items here that are, proportionate in size. And I know that we had we ate something at Avila. So it was the little egg desserts, along with some type of maybe.
We had chuletón.
Well, that was our lunch. Yeah. Remember? Yeah. So that was something else. I was finally able to enjoy a good meal when I'm just like, I just need some meat, a steak, something that's juicy. I need carne. So then they gave me a chuletón, and then later on I felt bad when I found out it was a little baby deal. So, but it was amazing. And then you ask for a chuletón and you think you're getting a little piece. I felt like they gave me the whole dang little baby cow, or, I'm just like, wow. I'm like, who wants to share? I'm not going to eat all this. So it was pretty interesting. And I think where we ate at Avila, they told us that right above, that's where, there was somebody famous that lived there, and darn, I already forgot. Darn.
Ray Bradbury.
Yeah, it was a famous writer.
It was a writer, movie person, but I'm trying to think who it was. It was in that same year, kind of same genre as Ray Bradbury. It'll come to me. If it comes to me, I'll put it in the chat.
There you go. Okay, so here we go. These are the excursions that I had mentioned, where we have visited Zamora León, Toledo, and Avila. So we've talked a lot about Avila already. But there's additional information there to learn about. I think the main thing is to understand the semicircle towers, the gates, the arch, El Alcázar. And so I have some pictures of the entrance there in a minute that I'm going to show you. It was pretty amazing and beautiful to visit that. Felt so, the castles and the pillars. And Toledo, again, I had mentioned about an ancient city where it used to be the capital, and it moved. And so the other thing I had mentioned earlier about the Arab and Jewish Christian monuments there. Now, Zamora León I was a little very distracted and almost got lost and lost the group because I was busy taking pictures. It was pretty interesting there. But another huge, gorgeous cathedral in León. And then they highlighted and talked a lot about the Douro River. Do you remember anything else about Zamora Leon, Lindsay?
Not that much. The only thing I do remember is that we did there was a small cafe right in front of the cathedral there in Leon.
Yes.
You guys must think all I do is eat. So we sat down, and there was actually, it was kind of a salted meat, a dried salted meat that we were told to try out. And it was almost not jerky like, but it was a dried meat, but it was a very thin slice. So it was kind of like ham, but not quite. So we had some interesting things there. The one thing I do remember about the outside and inside of Leon is that the dominant color was white on the cathedral. And it really was gorgeous setting there with all of that going on and lots of light and white colors. That's about it.
Okay, so here are some pictures. Off to the left, you see me, I'm in the center with my glasses and my hat. So off to the left, you see the convent, and those are two pictures of the convent of Convento de Santa Teresa. And then on the right, you see the entrance to Avila. And so the structure and how it was surrounded by the walls and the stones and palace and pillars. So it was a lot of fun. Let me see, what else do we have? So this is this was part of Zamora Leon. No, this is still Zamora. I don't have Leon here because Leon has a huge cathedral there. But this is the Museo de Leon, and then there's also a small church on the outside that we have visited, and as we walked around. So let me see. This is the outside of Toledo, and then these are my personal pictures that I took, and so this was one of the walkways going up, and then here is an example of a synagogue de Santa Maria La Blanca, and then the monastery, monasterio, and then I can't see it because I got our names there, San Juan de los Reyes. So again, very it was an amazing trip. Learned so much, and I think a lot of the prep and planning that is done in the courses that we took about culture, about history, about the art, it provided so much insight and more understanding. So I think it's what's very important to know and reference to visiting. A lot of people don't want to really vacation in an educational setting, but I'm going to tell you, you're missing out because we are in the education field, and you have such a better understanding of the culture, of the history, of the meaning, and the connection to the community and to the people. Lindsay, did you want to add anything?
I totally agree. I totally agree. It's a wonderful way to get overseas and immerse yourself and be able to learn so much, because, you know, this cultural history is remarkable. And honestly, it helps us understand a little bit better what we have going on here in Texas. I mean, look at San Fernando Cathedral, and we go, wow, that is, you know, something that's impressive, but it is a long way from Salamanca Old Cathedral, right? But we see the connections, and it really was, I got to tell you, it was nothing too taxing to go to classes and be there and do a little bit of studying. We were able really to experience a lot by, you know, just being out and about. The classwork and the coursework was very complementary to everything that we saw and did outside of the classroom. And so that really paid off, I would say, really paid off. And then, of course, once you're over there and you get a little comfortable, it's the perfect opportunity to take a few extra days, and then you go do your crazy vacation stuff. But for the most part, I think that everybody should do a trip like this.
I would definitely be smart like Lindsay. Lindsay, you know, I stuck to my plan and you know, it was my first time in Europe, and I'm like, okay, I love how organized and how all the information was provided and planning. But Lindsay, she was there before our and after. So like when we went into Madrid, we were only there for the night to plan to leave. But do you want to talk about, you know, real quickly about your other
Sure.
activities?
I flew in a few days early, and part of that was because I had actually been to Spain before, and I didn't have a lot of trepidation because I do speak Spanish. I don't speak it great, but I get by. And so I took a few days there in Madrid, and I took some time to go to a few museums that are absolutely priceless. The Prado Museum, they're in Madrid, has the largest collection of just paintings. It is the largest collection of paintings in the world in one spot. They actually sell 2-day passes now because it's impossible to get through it in one day. The other thing that I wanted to see was the Reina Sofia Museum. One reason is because it has a huge La Guernica de Picasso is in that museum, and they've got some pieces that I just had to see again. So the Reina Sofia was a sight to see, and then of course the park, basically the central park of Madrid, and that was fantastic. I spent a whole day there. Of all things, I heard a Dixieland band there. Interesting world. And so just walking around there, got to see El Palacio de Cristal, which is this crystal, looks like a giant birdhouse actually, but it's all windows that makes up this huge crystal palace. And then a few other art exhibits that I saw there. Not only that, I did get to pop in for a couple of performances. I didn't see a flamenco performance, but I heard some other guitarists. But I do believe, Ophelia, you saw the flamenco.
Oh, yes. That night we did see flamenco. That was pretty exciting. But I definitely want to let everybody know that traveling and making it an educational experience, if through Alamo colleges, if you could take advantage of it, please do so. There in the future, there's plans for professional development. This past year, no, earlier in the year, right? There was one that was planned for Mexico, for Puebla, to visit the Universidad de Puebla and to visit the Frida Kahlo Museum and all this fun stuff. And due to COVID, it was canceled. But there's a lot of planning that you could still do now, and some research, and make those connections and talk to faculty that lead these study abroad programs. And so even for students, you definitely want to look into study abroad programs and take advantage of the scholarships, of the financial aid. I've talked to several students who were able to get all of it covered and not have to worry about too much expenses. And they take care of everything in reference to lodging and flights. So, I mean, it's just an awesome opportunity. Please visit Advising if there's any questions you have about the courses that you can take. The international programs have a website that you can review to look at all the faculty load programs that are available, and you can access them and prepare. And if you're still going to be here 2022, then you can plan for that summer. If not, please share with others, your family, friends who are starting or coming, because it'll be perfect timing for them. And for staff, please be on the lookout and take advantage of that and request professional development in the future, depending on what's happening with the pandemic and budgeting. I don't know, but it never hurts to ask and to be aware and connect with Maria and Alicia in reference to any future opportunities anywhere in international programming. So I want to thank you all for your time. We've got a couple of minutes. Does anybody have any questions?
It's a quiet group.
Yes, they're chatting away. They really enjoyed it. So thank you so much. We're trying to make it as personable, relatable as possible, and just sharing. Hopefully you want to visit Spain. Another thing that I do want to mention that I thought was so interesting, how easy it was for the people that visited, that were in Spain or had been there before, that they traveled and went on the weekend. They're like, oh, I'll be back on Monday. I'm going to Berlin. And then another one, oh, I'm going to take a flight to Rome. And I'm like, oh my gosh, everybody's just going everywhere. I go, I can't even handle the idea of going anywhere else with my first visit. I was happy just with Salamanca, but I'm going to be a little bit more daring next time. And I'm thinking I'm going to spend every weekend in another country. Hey, you could do that. So thank you so much for being here, for giving us your time. Thank you for all your comments, and I'm glad that you enjoyed it.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Ophelia.
guys.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Ophelia.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Thanks.
Thank you.